Hi, Nate. Today you said you wanted to talk about mind control and indoctrination.
Yeah, well, see, one of the areas where if I had a degree I would be an expert is on um, the CIA's mind control program. And it amazes me, and I'm really disappointed in the media. They mustn't think it's a relevant issue, but still, you don't meet many people who know about MK Ultra. You don't meet many people who know about all the mind control experiments that the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, was conducting, even though it's completely public knowledge, acknowledged by the US government in Freedom of Information releases. You still don't meet people who know about it, and I know a lot about it, and it bothers me that the media never covers it because I think it's a relevant issue. Um, but I think when people think about mind control, I think they play this fantasy in their head that it's like these towers beaming out signals, turning everyone into drones that just conform mindlessly to society. But it's not about beaming out signals and taking over people's minds. We can't do that. We don't have that technology. When we introduce brain computer interfaces and people start getting chips in their heads, then you might be able to beam out a signal and seize control of someone's body. It's interesting, actually. There's an experiment which came out in declassified documents, and there was a time when CIA staff implanted a dog with a microchip, and this was like back in like the 60s or the 70s. I have to go and check this again. I read this years ago, and they were actually able to remote control the dog because they put a receiver in its head, and they were actually able to seize control of its behaviour and control its motions. Go and look into that. I'd like to double check that. Don't quote me on that, but go and look into that experiment. I remember reading about that in Freedom of Information releases. So that's an instance where it really is about beaming signals and seizing control of someone's actions and controlling them completely. One thing about indoctrination and mind control I'd like to acknowledge, which a lot of people don't acknowledge because we all live in this delusion where we think everything's okay. But the reality of human behaviour is people like to control each other, and some people absolutely feel entitled to control others and to dictate to others what choices they should make and how they should live and who they should be. And some people get really carried away with their justifications for controlling other people who really they shouldn't be controlling. But the thing about mind control is it happens a lot in society. People don't talk about this. Indoctrination happens a lot in society. As an atheist, from an atheist perspective, and I study science, and I believe science is the path to liberation and free thought and independent thought. My view is it's a bit harsh, and I'm not trying to offend religious people, and I have my own spiritual views, but really my view is if you're in any religion, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, anyone who is in a religion is indoctrinated into that doctrine, and you're under mind control. You're not a free thinker. You're not thinking independently. You're not liberated through science. You're indoctrinated into a doctrine dictated to you by an authority. So if you're in any religion, in my opinion, you're under mind control and you're indoctrinated. So consider that, because that's how I understand mind control and indoctrination. And you find a lot of people, most people, are indoctrinated into one thing or another. They're indoctrinated into a philosophy. You can be indoctrinated into free market capitalist philosophy. You can be indoctrinated into communist philosophy. You can be indoctrinated into all the religions which exist. And there are other philosophies you can be indoctrinated into. But really, indoctrination is a bit more extreme than that. It's like indoctrination is the pastor in the fanatical Bible Belt Christian church, which is against abortion and human rights, standing there and every week saying the same thing. See, that's the key to mind control someone. The key to indoctrinate someone is to repetition. You got to keep repeating the same thing, and with a tone that presents that you are an authority. See, people react to charismatic people, and a lot of people who are less independent thinkers will fall under the charm of charismatic people who manipulate them and control them. And like I said, it's the Christian pastor standing there week after week in sermon lecturing you about what his interpretation of what Jesus would want you to do. So, repetition is key to mind control. But you see, people join cults all the time, and there are the cult of rock stars. There's the cult of Britney Spears. There's the cult of Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's the cult of my music and the people who like my stuff and look at my stuff online. And then there's more extreme cults like Manson and the Manson family, where this guy, because Manson didn't do any of his murders. He convinced all his cult members to go around and kill all these people. That's really extreme cult behaviour, and those people were indoctrinated heavily into Manson's cult, and he had complete control over them. There's like the guy at the Waco massacre who developed a community, rocked up. He actually turned up to the church, became a part of the church, then took over the church through being charismatic and charming and announcing himself a prophet, and convinced everyone in the church that there was going to be an Armageddon and they had to go to war with the government. So the guy from the Waco massacre, he was really manipulative in his indoctrination of people. But who's really bad for indoctrinating people against their free will and sort of neutralising their independent thought was Stalin's regime. Stalin's regime would just take you if you disagreed with the state, and they would forcibly sit you down and repeat until you changed your thinking and got in line with the USSR. The USSR was really bad for indoctrinating people, and that's what it's like in 1984. Towards the end, they take him and they torture him, and torture is one of the most effective ways to re-educate people. See, it's like that idea that you would say, if you want, like in 1984, 2 + 2 is 3 or whatever it is, and the person knows 2 + 2 is 4, but every time they say 2 + 2 is 4, electric shock, zap, no it isn't, it's 3, and you just keep doing it over and over again until you say, what is 2 + 2? And they say 3. They know it's wrong, but they say what you want because you keep electric shocking them until they agree with you. That's really hardcore, forceful indoctrination. So that's the sort of thing that happens in 1984. Yeah, but all sorts of people join cults, and there are all sorts of people in religions. Are they independent thinkers? Are they reasoning? Are they being critical? Or are they just mindlessly following what they've been told by the leader who they've chosen to follow? And to some extent, we choose to follow charismatic leaders. Some people are in the cult of Anthony Albanese. Some people are still in the cult of Tony Abbott. They still think that we should all be following Tony Abbott. Some people are in the cult of Vladimir Putin. But people join cults if you understand that cults are a group of people thinking the exact same things about a given subject and not thinking independently and not reasoning and not using scientific reason, but just following blindly what they're being told by other people. So yeah, I've studied indoctrination quite a bit, and it's a really interesting subject. I encourage you to learn about the CIA's MK Ultra mind control program, where they were taking individuals and attempting to re-educate them. And when it's interesting, in the CIA's mind control program, most of the people who were hired to conduct these experiments were psychiatrists, because psychiatrists are masters of the mind. They understand the mind. So Dr. Cameron was one of the leading psychiatrists in America and in the world who was conducting experiments where he would, and this was on behalf of the CIA. He was CIA funded, and it was called sonic driving. So he would take mental patients in his institutions, and he would strap to their heads headphones and just play the same repetitious shit over and over again for weeks and weeks and weeks. And what he was trying to do was to take their disordered thinking, as was his view of their thinking, and realign it to be ordered and to be how he wanted it to be. And that was sonic driving, which was his method for re-educating people. So, I say be an independent thinker. I say be critical. I say science is liberation. Be independent, have independent thought. And we want diversity of ideas anyway. We don't want everyone to think exactly the same thing. Otherwise, we get bogged down in this very conservative approach to life, and we miss out on all this wonderful stuff that comes from free and liberal thinking. Go and learn about indoctrination and try and be an independent free thinker. Now, if you want to support me and everything I'm doing, give my videos a share, subscribe to my channel, give it a like, show your friends, tell everyone. Nathan Bell, he says the best stuff. Alright guys, go and think about mind control and indoctrination, learn about MK Ultra and liberate yourself.